There's a common theme in the media when it comes to the possibility of irregularities in the US presidential election.
It's a ludicrous claim.
Ludicrous.
Every vote counts, but when someone gets enough votes to win, the loser concedes. That is what happens in this country.
Described as unfounded, ludicrous and baseless, the allegations made by President Trump and his campaign team remain just that, allegations, until proven otherwise in courts of law. But such controversies are nothing new. Ask former President Barack Obama.
I come from Chicago, so I want to be honest. It's not as if it's just Republicans who have monkeyed around with elections in the past. Sometimes Democrats have too.
And here's Jerry Nadler, another Democrat, and the current chairman of the House Judiciary Committee.
In my experience in New York, paper ballots are extremely susceptible to fraud. Pure paper with no machines. I can show you experience which would make your head spin.
Nadler wasn't alone. The 2004 election saw concerns raised about multiple aspects of the voting process. One key swing state, Ohio, saw Democrat candidate John Kerry question whether the outcome represented the will of the voters, and the DNC chairman agreed.
I'm not confident that the election in Ohio was fairly decided. We know that there was substantial voter suppression and the machines were not reliable. It should not be a surprise that the Republicans are willing to do things that are unethical to manipulate elections. That's what we suspect has happened, and we'd like to safeguard our elections so that democracy can still be counted on to work.
Former US President Jimmy Carter co-chaired the Federal Election Reform Commission, which stated in 2005 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion. He's since backtracked on that claim, but remained scathing about elections in the United States.
The American political system wouldn't measure up to any sort of international standards for several reasons. Lack of Central Election Commission capable of issuing uniform rules, lack of equal access to the media for all viable candidates, and the inability to conduct recounts.
The election process in America has, of course, come a long way. In the 19th century, voting was controlled by gangs who would bribe or coerce voters. It looked something like this.
I'm offering my boy to form an alliance with you against Bill Cutting and his slate of nativist candidates. I'll negotiate a handsome fee for every Irish vote you send Tammany's way in the coming elections.
Things became less violent and more nuanced in the 20th century. Lyndon Johnson ended up winning a primary he was losing in Texas by just 87 votes, all thanks to the last-minute appearance of a ballot box full of votes for Johnson. Now, this paved the way to his rise in politics and later presidency. There was scandal at the time, but an admission took years to emerge.
Johnson did not win that election. It was stolen for him, and I know exactly how it was done.
The 2000 Bush-Gore election controversy has been cited by some as a comparison to 2020. Results in the deciding state were close, with the Supreme Court giving Bush the nod. But the result could have been very different. Thousands of voters in Florida were labelled felons, preventing them from voting. Bush's brother also happened to be the state's governor.
No major law firm in Florida would work for Al Gore.
Even Democratic?
Even Democratic-oriented law firms, because everyone was afraid of antagonizing the Bush family, antagonizing the governor, and losing important state business.
Well, this election cycle could perhaps be summed up best by Joe Biden himself.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Of course, this was just an ironic slip of the tongue. Biden was really talking about the Democrats' voter protection program. For many, though, the issue with the presidential election 2020 may not be the result itself, or even if Trump's claims are all true or not. Against the backdrop of election controversies spanning decades, it's the total dismissal and reluctance to even investigate the allegations that will continue to polarize voters for years to come.